Hey guys, Stealth here and welcome back to Wargame. Today I have for you a 4v4. We're on Paddy Field and I think that 4v4 could be getting quite crowded on a map like this. It depends on whether you're playing with a tactical income set, where you have less income and as such less units. But these guys do not seem to be having that. We're looking at Wool, Ukrop, Bushido and Bismuth on the blue team. With Fermano, Sargatanas? Sorry about that. Mr. AMZ and Metzger on the enemy team. Or actually on the red 4. I'm so used to playing BluFor that red 4 immediately becomes the enemy. Anyway, we're following Metzger today. He's going to be operating on the right side of the map, trying to push into Foxtrot. We have Fermano on the left flank. We have a CV from Sargatanas moving to Alpha and a CV from AMZ going to Hotel. So they spread these things out quite nicely. Now note their defensive line over here. We have a couple of past Pragas which are defending against helicopter rushes or infantry insurgencies. So very nice and cheap units which can easily do that job without chopping into your budget too much. Now for his starting setup, he is going with a couple of transport, a Strop, BRDM2, T72, M1M, and a couple of OT tabs. I wonder if he's going to jump down this route, but considering his unit placement, I think that's exactly his plan. And to make sure that both the MI8s and his own units have recon, he's going to go in with an HI-42 Hera first. Now let's see what the other guys are deploying, because I am expecting heavy tanks, and here they are. T80UM, couple of T72 Modernas, a quad section of T55 Recons, interestingly. And towards the left you will find no such setup. He's only bringing a T72 M1 and mostly infantry transports going that way. With the X85 or 185 KT, the Bushmaster, the enemy infantry is going to have a bad day. Although the question always is, can I get that gun into range here without being killed off? Anyway, let's have a look at what he's doing. Contrary to what I was expecting, which is him going over the bridge with all of his units, he's taking the shortcut, which is a shortcut only in the sense that it's a shorter route. Doesn't mean you're going to use less fuel or less time getting there. And it seems that the Mi-8 buddies are already moving up without the recon helicopter to back them up there. I wonder where he was trying to drop these guys off. Looks like he may want to take a position in here. And considering the extreme veterancy of these guys, the elite troops, what are we dealing with? FJBs or LSTRs would be my bet. Now I'm not sure if Blue has already detected the incursion over here, but they are smoking. So they're definitely up to something, and yes, they have detected the push. Tiger had suppressing the LSTR, which have just disembarked from their helos. As you can see, he's instantly splitting them up to make sure that they do not instantly get wiped out by one air-to-air missile in that case. Now let's see what else we have going on, because it's going to be a tough one to cover with so much going on this map. We have BluFor coming in. This is one player so far, just Wool. And we have a Leclerc from Ukrop with a couple of Remas pushing into the tree line. Now that one Leclerc is going to have a bad day, especially with the T72 Modernas. Let's see, where's the UM? The UM may have already passed. Already got taken out, but they do have an SU-25 which is holding the line and just easily took it out. Now onto the fighting on the right flank, where we have more unpronounceable Yugoslavian units pushing up. I'm going to call these the Mornas. Morna's not terribly good at taking out armor, especially not in a pushing role, because they only have a rate of fire of 10 rounds a minute. And especially considering their AP is only 19, you're going to have to hit targets more than once if you want to kill them off. But it looks like the LSTR are perfectly capable of dealing with enemy armor, as they just encountered a Merkava 2 over there, presumably brought in with the Messiah At, and these guys, of course, the RPG-29 Vampire, more than capable of taking it out. Now, a unit that I don't often use myself, and I don't often see on the battlefield over here, is the Perret, the heavy anti-tank unit, and it seems to already have claimed one victim. as one of the Modernas got taken out. There's the Perret again. This time around dealing with enemy anti-air. And accuracy of 76%. Narrowly avoids death here, the transport. Can he do that again? Not really. These things hit so hard that it is not particularly likely that any infantry survives. So he just got that in time. Returns fire. But of course, missiles on these OT tabs are not really going to do that much if you're dealing with 6 frontal armor. Aside from that, this thing on the sides and the rear, not very heavily armored. But then again, it doesn't have to get into range. 2,975 meters tells you that this thing does not need to get close. And the Moderna here is playing a very dangerous game. Right on the edge of the tree line. Just as the Perret was moving, but the Moderna was in range. Mutually in range, in that sense. Oh, this was lucky. That was not so lucky. The Moderna was in range to kill the Perret, but unfortunately it went back and presumably got covered by the smoke. Although it may have just been using the tree line for cover. Anyway, let's see what's going on the left, because there's a remarkable scarcity of units over here. We got multiple attack markers coming in here, presumably to move this teammate into action and have him deploy the command infantry, because they're losing points and now they're actually gaining points. We have 4 versus 60, but then again, the game still has plenty of time to run, and considering that there's no clock, which is ticking down, this was probably a total destruction match. So not so much a time-limited match as it was limited by the amount of conquest points that they could gain. Now, more of the BluFor infantry is trying to push in. Combined offensive here with Haebyung and Commando Marines. These guys are no joke. Especially the Commando Marines are elite troops. Haebyung 90, shock troops, but 15-man squads. And there's 43 of them still coming in against only 14 VDV, and that's not even counting the Commando Marines. So they are very likely to start losing this particular section of tree line. And that's not the only tree line that they're actually losing, because Blue is pushing in a hell of a lot of transports on the left. SDRF 9040s coming in large numbers, quad stacks of infantry being offloaded, and there is not a lot that 1 T-72 can do against that. Of course, the ITOs are scrambling for cover. We have one Jäger 90, which is, well, trying to hold itself, but against an oncoming force of 10 SDRF 9040s, backed up by at least one Panzer 121. I believe they just took out the other one. There's not a whole lot that these guys can do, and they just got immediately wiped out. Now the STRF 9040 is moderately armored, pretty heavily armored if you look at it in IFV terms. It does not really take that much damage from a bombing run, especially not the Su-24M bombers, but the infantry inside will, if they have offloaded these guys. I however think that the infantry got offloaded here already, so you're just dealing with transports which are trying to see how far exactly they can push into Anna. How far can they go until they encounter that CV? And I don't think it's going to take them much longer to get there. Another STRV-121 comes in. It looks like Bismuth had everything going on this gamble, where he pushed in all of his forces along this line. And it seems to have worked. Because without Anna, they're going to start gaining points again. Now back to the right flank. We have the Vizatkari and the Mornas taking the front line. They have a foothold in this sector, but they don't have a CV yet. So while your foothold is valuable, having a CV in there would immediately neutralize that +1 income and put more pressure onto this side, especially on BluFor of course, to start motivating them to get to work. For now though, Red is not doing very well. We have Anna neutralized, Gregory neutralized, Blue is on a +2. There's no sign of a Red 4 command vehicle coming in for this flank, and at this point you can't really blame them, because they are dealing with the incursion on the left with all of those STRF 9040s, which are also being backed up by the RBS-90s in case any airstrikes try to come in. And especially the 121, which is lurking somewhere in these tree lines, needs to be defended. They're doing a great job at that so far. Now we can assume that there's still a lot of infantry in this tree line, and not just that. Presumably they're... actually, I think Red's command vehicle here got wiped out. And of course, Boris is no longer being contested, so they could cap that as well. Never mind, I thought Gregory was being contested. That Red had a CV in here and Blue had parked their own CV into this little tree line once they captured it, but that's not the case. Conquers M, in trying to engage at long range against the Oshkosh. Not a really high value target, but it does carry a lot of supplies. And all of a sudden it does become a high value target if you can kill this thing off and prevent the Maglans from keeping those spikes coming your way. The M84 Recon is trying to do something about those Maglans. Unfortunately not very accurate, considering the fact that it's been completely panicked. It's now being stunned and now being bombed in submission by another airstrike. And while they do have this foothold, bringing in new units over here is not going to be too easy, at least not through this road. You're gonna have to take this road and then come in from the side, or you risk engaging, or encountering rather, that Hafiz that they have parked over here somewhere. Now another super heavy's been spotted, another Leclerc, a bunch of Panzerskite, and I wonder where the rest of the French infantry is at the moment. Because what I see here is Bushido. I don't see a lot of Ukrop's forces yet, and that concerns me. Because if Ukrop does not have a lot of forces on the front line, then you're bound to see a few more of them coming in. Nice kill though by this area. I guess they were not expecting an attack like that. Unfortunately, this area had to pay dearly for that, but it is still cheaper than a Leclerc. Now you can see that Bushido has this town reinforced. Shahuda Rennes, we have an automatic backing up against enemy aircraft, which was just in time as Red decided to start sending in helicopters. Not getting very lucky with that push. Now the Hudaos do have range. The T-62s can outrange them, but not by that much. The Hudaos have a range of 1400. These guys have a range of actually 2275. I thought these would have 1900, being the older T-62s. My bad. So that never mind. These guys can definitely outrange the targets. And it seems that BluFor's AA is starting to falter in this section. And Red utilizes that immediately to land napalm on them. But did you guys catch what's coming up here? I saw 8 more SDRF 9040s, which are making their way through the tree line. Not sure exactly where they're headed. They can climb up this line or they can climb up here. But they don't really have any way of immediately trying to enter this village, or sorry, this tree line. I believe that this is not a vehicle ramp. It doesn't work like that in the game. Back to the right, where Metzger is still fighting for this little foothold that he has. And there's not a lot left. He has a handful of infantry units, one tank, which is still full health, but has no line of sight, as BluFor is putting up a fantastic smokescreen and neutralizing any vision that he might have. And as the vision's being neutralized, Blue, in the form of Bushido here, is pushing an enemy infantry, or at least enemy transports. But you can be sure that the infantry is soon to follow, and yes, we have 30 Hebung 90s which, well, did get panicked, but even in their panicked state are still more than a force to be reckoned with by the Mornas. What do you do? Because at this point sending an aircraft could work, but it's a pretty expensive solution. Sending in helicopters is not, well, very, very unsafe. Sending in more tanks is not really useful because your infantry, or the enemy infantry, especially those Hebungs, are going to easily chop through any tank that they might find. Mortars could work, but you need frontline troops to hold this zone. So Blue is doing a fantastic job kicking these guys out. Another Peace Pheasant comes in. Any infantry and AA that still manages to survive the initial push gets wiped out. And what he has left now is one mortar, one tank, and literally one unit of infantry. One infantryman still standing, and now he's sailing. Get out of here. Pull back. We are not going to hold this. There's the tank. What's their next defensive line, though? Because while he does have the conquerors and the proletary, there's really not that much that's holding out this zone, and especially this flank. If the enemy decides to push here, this could get rather painful. Unfortunately, we have some better news on the left, where a lot of Red 4 infantry came in and is starting to push the Blue 4 units back. Now we can start to see some of these units from Ukrop, a couple of AMX 40s coming in, and of course more of these Swedish infantry. The Panzerskide 90, pretty damn good units. I always find them quite cost effective, and they have a decent anti-tank weapon on them, which, as opposed to the Mornas, does not do 10 rounds a minute but 20. So if you're dealing with enemy transports and you have some of these guys nearby, you can cut through enemy vehicles, both medium and light armor, pretty quickly with that weapon. Still though, I wonder where the rest of the French forces are. Well, I can tell you where the rest of the Swedish forces are for sure. They're coming in exactly through the same road. We have exactly 7 units of Cartagena which are trying to keep these guys at bay, and of course, once again, 40 units of Panzerski to get offloaded. The question is that all of them, or are there more? Were those other 4 transports empty, yes or no? And once again, you can see the effectiveness of these STR F-9040s. They can keep pushing, they can take a hit, but regardless, you're going to have to spend a lot of munitions on these things, a lot of attention trying to kill them off. And in the meanwhile, they're doing damage to your infantry, they can deal damage to your AA platforms, so you're going to have to take these guys serious. They're a serious threat, especially with the 4 of them. Now we have napalm tanks trying to close the gap. The question is, against what? Because we know that there's the infantry here, but if they are backing up this sector with a tank, that is not really going to go too well for the TO-62s. For now though, there seems to be a very, very temporary lull on the fighting. Let's use that to switch back to the right flank, where they're shit out of luck. There is the same setup that we had before. The proletary and the concourse. Concourse has 1 missile left. And once again, Blue is laying a smokescreen. Blue is seemingly, and I gotta say, this looks fantastic for a smokescreen, because he's not actually a smokescreen. He's not trying to screen off vision, but they're building a tunnel by the looks of it. They're building a sort of a gateway for infantry and vehicles to come in from this tree line, move directly through the smoke, only to exit right at the doorstep of the Proletary 90, right there. They can get that done, and the Proletary have no chance. And of course, it's not just this push that they're worried about. We also have the Merkava and more units from Wool coming in. And if there's a Merkava 2A, that probably means that Messiah AT are soon to follow, and here we are. That's the transports. We cannot even see what they are, but there's the Rima. And now we know what Ukrop has been doing with his forces. I assume that he might have been the one who's providing all of those smoke screens, both there initially, now here, and I believe we saw a smoke screen a little bit more to this side of the map earlier. So he's putting up a lot of smoke and gaining terrain. Now Red instantly pushes back with another airstrike, wiping out most of the Rimas, but trying to get back into these buildings is not going to be easy. Fortunately, the AA is still on point, and the T-72 still neutralizes this zone, but that's about all we can say. Because the T-72 command tank instantly becomes a high-value target, a priority target. And if there's one ATGM vehicle, a TOW2, then the Perret is soon to follow. The Perret gets into range. We have a missile going out, but it lost line of sight narrowly. The TOW2 apparently does not have that problem. It impacts the T-72, and now they have them on the run yet again. Red was forced to give up this ground, forced to give up this building section, and now is forced to give up the rest here, because they simply cannot hold. There's too much of BluFor pushing at them. There's just not enough red 4 units to hold them back. And it seems that red has no end to quad stacks of infantry units. Of course, Bismuth is immediately being punished for that aggressive push there with the quad stacks by what we have here, quad stacks of Nonas from Mr. AMZ. That makes life for the Morskayas a bit easier, but of course it's not going to be the last of the Swedish infantry. And once again, they have neutralized this building section. This has been very, very heavily fought over. As you can see, the whole area is blackened. Some of the buildings are destroyed. Of course, unlike Steel Division, that does not pose a problem for Wargame. And the amount of wrecks that we have here is impressive. Let's see, are there any wrecks on this side? No, there's just a couple of transport. Yep, we do have wrecks coming in over here. You can see which team they were simply by the way that they're angled. If they're going that way, they're red 4. If they're coming this way, they're blue 4. And that's not it. We also have the STRF 9040s. We have what seems to be a T62 or TO62, the napalm variant. Resupply units. Here's the STRF that got taken out. The road is littered with wrecks. And it's not just red 4 wrecks, it's blue 4 wrecks all the same. And yes, once again, more STRF 9040s coming in. TO62 is trying to resist these guys, but at, what do they have? 8 frontal armor. These guys are doing damage, especially at a range this short. The TO62s took a decent beating, but managed to at least hold off for now. And hopefully a bunch of Panzerjäger can hold this zone for a little bit while they try to get this zone in check. This is where the battle is going. The battle keeps pushing. BluFor keeps moving closer. And at this point even the Nornas, the mortars from AMZ, have been wiped out, or at least halved. There used to be a quad stack of these guys. So, you're red 4. BluFor has 355 points, which is about half that they need. They're getting a +2. It's a total destruction match, so you cannot hope for time to run out. How are you going to counter? What do you do at this point? Well, as you might have observed, they still have 22 minutes left on the replay to still make a counter move if they want to win this. How are they going to do that? This is something I really wonder about. Because we know that blue has a lot more infantry units. I'm not sure what the kill-death ratio is at the moment, and it's not too important. Not for points, but it does give you an indication of how much infantry red might have left. And the same goes for blue. Now here come the Humvees. The question is, are they empty? And I think that they are empty. This is just a scouting force. Just to see what they have. How far can we go? And they did find the command vehicle. So now the question is, did the blue team see that? And with 4 eyeballs on it, I'd say, well, probably. So artillery might be soon to follow. And if it is, then it's not going to be a good day for the for the UAZ, and they can neutralize a +2, putting them at a +4. Once again, a great smokescreen over here. I'm gonna again attribute that to Ukrop. And of course, the Huda Ren from Bushido are making great use of that to keep pushing into this zone. Once you have infantry in here, it's a short hop to this tree line, reinforce that, and you cut off any reinforcements that red might still bring in. Yeah, this is going to be close. How are they dealing with this? The thing that you do have going for you is that if you're red 4 and you're over here, your supply lines are so much shorter than blue. Blue has to be planning ahead about, I'd say, 3 minutes. It's probably what it takes before the units actually arrive on the front line. Red 4 only has, well, maybe a minute, and of course can immediately call in airstrikes, whereas blue would need to scramble a fighter quickly in order to get there. Now, one thing I haven't been paying attention to at all is this. We have a group of special forces behind enemy lines. They have now been detected, but they can, of course, wipe out the Alouette. They're just not quite close enough to start spotting reinforcements, let alone a command vehicle over here. So they're going to have to get a little closer, but Blue now knows that there's something here. They now know it can fight back, which significantly limits the amount of different units that it can be. And at this point I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to have more offensive units trying to hunt these guys down. By now, we're still fighting a desperate defensive line here. As the Shaitet are coming in, the Conquerors are holding the line, but there's not a lot of guys left to fire those missiles. There's still enough to deal with a TOW-2. That's an easy kill. What happens when they start bringing in heavies? What happens when you start to see Merkava 2As with the grenade launchers? Because at this point they just lost their ranged anti-tank option. Still have an Mi-28 over there which can do that job. But then again, they don't have a lot of time to recoup. Because it's a +4 for BluFor, as Blue has neutralized this zone. What happens next? Well, what happens next is we're going to see more fire support infantry coming in. Not a moment too soon, as another 30 Gavadi are trying to make a push on this town. Sargatanis is going to have to quickly offload these guys, or we might not see this town in Red 4 hands for much longer. The Gavati are taking fire from the Pencherinovnichi. I probably butchered that, but I'm sorry, I'm not too familiar with the pronunciation over here. Gavati have been stunned. I think that the smoke screen should have been extended a little more. If that was the case, it would have been more difficult for Red 4 to counter these units as quickly and as effectively as they are right now. Token of countering, look at what Red is up to on the left. We have a whole bunch of engineer troops pushing forward right into another welcoming committee of 30 Hebu 90 with their transport for support. And yes, of course, the Swedes are out again. A quad stack of STRFs coming back in. And look at what we found. Command infantry out in the open. Specialny might be able to take that out, but not if they're being engaged by autocannons. However, if they can neutralize this, it's going to at least give them something to consider. Something to replace, but yeah, I was worried that would happen. So they now know where it is. Do they have artillery? I don't see it, but he is bringing in a Telak 91, which is definitely artillery, and this is what I was worried about. It's not a Merkava 2A, it's a Merkava 3D. That is not something that these guys can really counter, especially not at range. I mean, it's not just one, it's two of them. So Wool's going full out on the super heavies, trying to neutralize any vehicle that might try to reinforce this town section over here, just to keep these guys at bay for a little bit. Mi-28 got one hit. Not sure it was a kill. Let's assume that there's still two Merkava 3s over here. A couple more infantry units rushing forward through the woods. I by now think that most of the infantry over here got used in the push on this town. So there's not going to be too much BluFor infantry left. And as you can see, there's an AA unit over there. Which means that there's probably not too much infantry left. Because otherwise the infantry would have been the first thing they encountered. Now the enemy team is now at 677 points. 678. They have recaptured Cheriton. They have managed to neutralize Boris. They're artillerying this position where we knew the infantry was, the command infantry that is. So they're definitely making progress, and look at this. This is interesting. Fermano, somehow, and I think through here, has managed to push a small army back to BluFor base. This is a very good push if it makes it through. The problem with this situation can be that it gets spotted early. If that happens, you're going to see airstrikes and you're going to see heavy tanks instantly appearing in front of you with not a lot of things that you can do. So what you need to try and do is go out there, scout it, kill off the command vehicle instantly, cut off the head of the snake that way and hope that there's not going to be too much of a counteroffensive. Now, it looks like we have a heavy AA battery over here. That seems to be a Hawk of some variety. It did try to lock onto the Super Puma as it was being spotted by the truck. Yep, we still have defensive units here. A couple of I was going to say Machbets. Yeah, probably Machbets. So those are the units from Wool. There's a Shanav 3. Come on, where's your command unit? Red, currently back in the lead. 33 points and gaining 35 points. Command vehicle rushes into this zone, trying to capture Boris as quickly as possible, getting them a +3. Merkava by now seems to be on the run. A couple more helicopter assaults are trying to deal with it, immediately got wiped out. They lost Cheriton as they had to move the CV a little bit, but not enough and not long enough for Red to really, or sorry, for Blue to really capitalize on that. Let's see how this push can go. Can we survive this? There's a command vehicle spawning. Oh son, you spawned exactly in the wrong place. What else does he have? Resupply units. Oh, it's not that much. It's a bunch of barracks. Another 30 Panzerskeet. This push, I don't think it's going to be around for much longer. Because as I mentioned, Blue can instantly spawn in units. And Red's units are going to have to either fly their way around, drive their way around, or come in from the other side. And the other side's not too safe. Interestingly, it looks like the artillery offensive that they deployed earlier might have been effective at neutralizing the command unit in center. So we're now still at a +1. It's not quite where they want to be. But if they can neutralize this one, if they can push through all the infantry that that Blue still has, then they might be able to find the command vehicle here. And since this is double stacked with command units, they might be able to send one over the center, and that's when the points are really going to kick off. Unfortunately, Blue is keeping this command vehicle on its toes and keeping it moving around, and therefore not getting a lot of income from it for Red 4. Jesus, look at that. 40 Rima, 40 Panzerskite. Did that drop? It did not drop. Ran out of fuel. SU-7B. There's one Machbet less. Oh, this thing's not set to evac Winchester. In case you're new to the game and you don't know you can do that, there is, let me pause this quickly, an option in the game where you can have automatic Winchester evacuation, which means that if an aircraft drops its ammunition, it's out of ammo, mostly its primary weaponry, let's say an anti-tank plane fires off its anti-tank missiles, it then automatically evacs. You can turn this off if you want to. And by doing that, you can keep an airplane around longer or specifically direct it out of the combat zone through a channel that you know is safe. So, let's say strike this particular tank and then make your way there. So shift and right click as a waypoint and then get out. That's a safer way of doing it. It requires more micromanagement. And if you are in the heat of battle, what can happen is that you forget about that aircraft. And if that happens, then there's a very good chance that you lose it. Look at this. Sarkatanus pushing in with a bunch of helos. This is why those seed aircraft were patrolling. So far, Blue doesn't need much. They just need a little over 60 points. Correction, a little under 60 points even. And looky here. This command unit. Blue is instantly spawning in as much AA as they can possibly muster. Dragons, automatics, AA infantry. So the helo push is quickly deterred. But I think the command infantry is dead. This means that with the command infantry dead, no command infantry to spare or no command unit to spare from center, they're probably going to have to pull it back from Fedor. And of course, this now puts Red 4 at a +3. Red 4 also managed to neutralize the command infantry that you may have just seen on the edge of the screen here, killing it off, and as such capturing this zone, so it's a +3 for red. What is blue's next move going to be? And by the way, it would have been so nice if you'd had a super heavy over here. All these kills, high value AA, that would have been nice. Elena secured by the enemy. So they once again have a command unit. Interesting. They got there a lot faster than expected. They may have had a reserve command unit, which was originally going to center, and then they directed it back to Elena as it got neutralized. Still, this offensive over here, as well as the helicopter push, it temporarily gave Red 4 the break that they were going for. The one that they needed. Sorry about that, that's my TS. I should have muted that. STR V103D trying to hold the line. There's going to be a lot of holding the line against all of this infantry. I don't think it's going to be around for much longer. Gregory, look at all the Red 4 units which are rushing into this zone. Transports, even a VHOR, a bunch of Pragas. Command vehicle, the one that was double stacked onto Boris, gets redirected right onto Gregory and captured. That's a +4 for Red 4. According to the game, we have 10 minutes left on this replay. So we're not quite done yet. There we go, +4. What is the next stop going to be for Red 4? Judging by the amount of infantry units that they have over here, it could be this zone. Oh, look at this. How are they spotting that? Oh, these guys, of course, the Erics. The Erics are spotting the command infantry. And I think that by now, they may have taken out a large portion of BluFor's command units. So much so that blue might start to run dry as far as command units go. But then again, the same can be said for Red 4. Of course, you only have 3 infantry units per deck. Depending on specializations, I believe you can have 4 if you only go with a nation deck. But at least we know that this infantry unit is not going to be around for too much longer. That they have the precise location and wipe it out. There we go, +4 once again. Whatever was left from this push over here has been completely decimated. There's still a command tank, which was probably quite eager to neutralize or even capture Elena. There's not a whole lot that they can do with it right now. So they can just hold and wait for an opportunity to push in. But considering they have been detected by AKUs, I wonder when we're going to see another attack coming here. But personally, it's not a priority for me. If I was blue, I saw a command unit over there, I'd go, yeah, well, screw it. This is not a priority. If I can keep them at bay, and I can keep pouring units into Feder and center, that'd be my priority. Because these guys right now don't pose any sort of a threat. They only pose a threat when they get close enough. And it looks like BluFor does not quite agree. They are sending in 1 unit. Bismuth's coming in. Oh, actually, they're dedicating a few more units to it. Leopard 1A5 getting gun runned by a MiG-21. That's interesting. Of course, red at this point loses all recon, so it's just whatever binoculars you have on the tank. The T-55 takes a hit, returns fire. Leopard for 1A5's armor is a bit better. Returns fire, command tank dead. Cheap way of dealing with it. Well done to BluFor. Again, would not have been my preference, but it can work. Anyway, this town looks like it just got napalm RD'd. As you can see, there's still fires going on. A couple of smoldering embers over there. Infantry are worried, but not so much as panicked as the Rangers, and I wonder how much they were able to take out. Although, what we can see is that there's a command vehicle coming in. Bushido at this point decides to surrender. Interesting. I wonder why. Potentially because there's no time limit. BluFor does not, or at least Bushido does not really see any way of winning this fight anymore. That could be it. He could have lost faith. Or ran out of units. considering the amount of units that they were pouring into the other zones earlier, like these two. I wouldn't be surprised if at this point the infantry reserve from blue, well, and red at this point, are getting diminished to the point where it's getting hard to field new units. Now, blue is still putting up a stern fight over here. Of course, with limited AA options, as most of the AA units which seem to be over here have either been destroyed or are still set up in defensive positions around the main spawn. The infantry over here is not having a good day. They're constantly getting airstriked. They are getting pushed on by infantry. What I'm not seeing really is the transports. The Red Fort transports, such as these. The KRKK with a grenade launcher. Very, very effective against infantry. It seems they're only pushing in infantry. Not so much any tanks or fire support vehicles. Of course, mortars are doing what they can. Same for airstrikes. Those fire support units tend to be extremely effective. What also can be extremely effective is an Avia 28. This is going to hurt. Boom. I wonder how much is left. Interesting. The command vehicle was probably either killed off or forced to relocate at this point. Can Red 4 send in a command vehicle? At this point, I don't see any moving command vehicles. But all the same, if they can keep this zone neutralized and keep that +4 going for long enough, what they only need to do really is hold. And wait for the time. Or actually, wait for the points to tick up, because there is no time limit. But man, is this a meat grinder for both teams. Probably seeing significant losses on both sides. Wool at this point brings in his last, or at least what I think is going to be his last Merkava 3D, assuming those two others got destroyed over here. We got another couple tanks coming in, but it's not what they need right now. These are not the tanks that they're looking for. What they need is infantry. Without the infantry, the town's getting overrun. Of course, the infantry then gets stuck, because they cannot do anything at range against the tanks, while the tanks at range can definitely do something against the infantry. Problem though, they're just staring at each other. And this is a staring match that Red 4 will win, because Red 4 has an Mi-28. BluFor has AA, but it's out of range. So these 103Ds, they are sitting ducks. There's not a lot that they can do. Ooh, that was close though. Ooh, another one. RBS-90 did not get lucky today, as this Mi-28 narrowly makes it out. I'm still not seeing a moving command vehicle, but I am seeing another push on the right flank. It's impressive, I gotta say. Hats off to how effective these guys have been pushing back. If the enemy team was over here in Cheriton, I would probably have said, well, screw it. They have 500 points, I think, by that point. They are pushing everywhere. We are losing Anna, we're losing Boris, we're losing Cheriton. Never mind. Let's just move on to the next game. Not these guys. Fermano, Sargatanis, AMZ, and Metzger stuck it out. Thought, hell no, we are not going to lose this one. And they just pushed back, and they're still pushing. As he wrote in the description of this replay, after a good start, BluFor pushed us back to our limits. Do you think 692 against 12 on the scoreboard can stop the communists? Oh hell no. The communists will keep coming. In force. Regardless of how many heavies you throw at them, regardless of how many smoke screens you lay, and how many infantry units you push into Cheriton, threaten their main Dimitri spawn zone, and however many conquest points you have gained, you cannot defeat the Reds. They're still trying though. They're still trying. We have the Leclerc. Looks like we have another couple of transports coming in, trying to get in fast to drop off the infantry. But at this point we do have fire support units, and exactly the right kind. BMP-2. See, the KRKK with the grenade launcher would not have been as effective against the VAB transport, but the BMP-2 with the autocannon absolutely are. These guys can very, very quickly chew through the enemy infantry, the enemy transports, And especially this combination is very powerful. These for the transports and the infantry, these are more effective against the infantry. So, while they are losing infantry, they are keeping BluFor at bay. And they are almost at the same point value that Blue has. It's 602 versus 692. Blue's just lost another couple aircraft, and I think that this is pretty much the point at which BluFor goes, well, screw it. We are not going to win this one. Oh, looky here. A command centurion? These are exceptionally rare. Huh. Okay. I don't think I ever used the command centurion. Not sure about that. Anyway, let's see what the right's up to. They have a foothold, but little more than that. And considering the consistent absence of any command units from red, I think they may have expended all of them. Of course, they lost quite a few. Oh, look at this actually. There's a command infantry unit moving in from Sargatana. So they capture this. It's another +2. They end up at a +6. And that should shorten the game significantly. Kudos to BluFor. Ukrop. Where's the guy who left? Bushido left. Ukrop, Wu, and Bismuth. These guys are still hanging on. They are not letting up. They're not just going, yeah, well, this is it, GG. They're just finishing this fight, one way or another. And it looks like it's going to be one way for Red 4. So you think you can bring in infantry? No, says the Rack 89. We have some special delivery for you. Any infantry vehicles and infantry that happens to pass through this large, well, firewall is not going to have a good time. I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot. And with just 20 seconds left, it's clear. Red 4 has won, despite the immense push that Blue made, despite the immense advantage that it had. These guys came back from the dead and kicked BluFor's ass. And I commend them for it, and I think you should too. So let's have a look at the points. First, the guy that I was following, 2869 versus 3095. He lost a little more. Considering that he won in the end, and that it is a conquest game, he played very, very well. You could have seen far worse values over here, considering how much they were getting pushed back. Looks like these two were the main damage dealers for the team, Fermano and AMZ. These guys got almost a 2-to-1 win rate, or 2-to-1 kill death rate. So these guys have been very, very effective. Bushido lost a bit more. Bismuth actually made positive by the end of the game. That's an accomplishment, because just as much as these guys got pushed back, BluFor got pushed back as well, heavily. So you'd expect them to start losing a lot more points. Wool got a lot more losses. That might be because he inherited some units from Bushido, and he had to manage more. Which means if you manage more, you manage less with the micromanagement. That could have been one of the reasons why he got more negative than that. Anyway, this was one hell of a game. And Metzger, thank you for sending in. I really enjoyed covering this. Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments on this game. Did you like it? Did you think that red would win? Blue would win? How should I cover one of these games next time? Because I tend to cover the winning team. Maybe I should start covering the losing team. Although you could argue that red was the losing team at some point. So let me know, how do you like me to cover these things? Anyway, if you have a gameplay video or a replay like this and you want me to turn it into a gameplay video, send it in through the link down in the description. And if you like my content, then please consider becoming a Patreon. I could use the support. Link to that in the description down below as well. For now, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this almost 50 minutes of Wargame. And I'll see you soon for more videos.